The prosperous, wealthy Egyptian peasants and citizens during their leisure engaged themselves in the creation of artistic works. The role of priest was created to interpret nature and explain it. The priests were scholars and shouldered the responsibility of protecting written documents. They believed in life after death. They believed that man had to give an account of his deeds on earth to Osiris, the most powerful god of life and death. The priests considered that life on earth was temporary and was needed only to prepare for the next life. Thus, the whole of the Nile Valley was reserved for the dead. The dead body would be smeared with various chemicals and wrapped with a thin cloth. The entire body was in this way preserved. The body protected thus was called a mummy. It would be kept in a specially designed coffin. The grave was considered the true place for an Egyptian. Hence all around the dead body, items needed for daily use and small dolls of a cook and barber would be kept to fulfill all future needs. Pyramid. In the beginning, graves were created by carving into the rocks in the hills. As the Egyptians moved north, they had to construct graves in the desert itself. Tall towers were built on these graves using huge blocks of stone in order to protect the eternal sleep of the dead. Kings and wealthy people vied with each other to build taller and taller towers. The Greeks called these structures pyramids. The kings of Egypt were called pharaohs. Pharaoh means a person who lives in a palatial house. The peasants who had accepted the rule of powerful Osiris now accepted the rule of pharaohs too. After an independent, prosperous life for 20 centuries, Egypt was ruled over by an Arabian shepherd tribe called Hyksos, which attacked it and after defeating it, ruled for 500 years. They looted the wealth of the natives, and hence did not become popular. The Jews who came wandering through the deserts in search of shelter were also hated by the people of Egypt. By cooperating with the foreign rule, the Jews even assisted them in collecting taxes and in administration. Copyright sign KT 1700 BCE. The people of Thebes rose in revolt against the foreigners. After a prolonged conflict, they succeeded in driving Hyksos out of their country. Egypt became free once again. After 1,000 years, it came under the rule of Sardanapalus of Assyria. The Persian Emperor Cambyses occupied Egypt in the 6th century BCE. Alexander occupied Persia in the 4th century BCE. Egypt became a province of Macedonia. One of Alexander's military generals declared himself the king of Egypt and established the dynasty of the Ptolemy. He founded the city of Alexandria. At last came the Romans in 39 BCE. The last Egyptian queen, Cleopatra, tried her best to save her country. It was said that the Romans feared her beauty more than her troops. Twice she was successful in her attack upon the hearts of her Roman conquerors. However, in 30 BCE, Caesar's successor, his son-in-law, Augustus, did not succumb to her beauty like his father-in-law, but defeated her army, though he spared her life. When he planned to carry her away along with the other spoils of the battle, Cleopatra consumed poison and ended her life. From then onwards, Egypt became a province of Rome.
The Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamia is an area that lies in a valley between two rivers. Many of the places described in the Old Testament can be seen here. The land which inspires awe and fascination is called the land between the rivers, or Mesopotamia, by the Greeks. The two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris, had made this West Asian barren land very fertile. It was the fertility of this area that attracted the people to it. Since food crops could be grown with little effort, the northern hilly tribes and the southern nomadic tribes of the desert tried to establish control of this area. The rivalry between these tribes led to a number of endless conflicts. However, in the midst of these conflicts, there emerged a civilization of strong and brave race. The Sumerians were the first ones to evolve a system of writing in Mesopotamia. For 30 centuries, all those who entered the Fertile Valley, Sumerians, Babylonians, Assyrians and Persians, used this system of writing, which was called cuneiform. The central area of this civilization was the
The central area of this civilization was the southern part of the valley between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers. From olden times, this area had been referred to as Babylonia. The northern part of Babylonia was called Akkad and the southern part Sumer. The northern part of Mesopotamia was known as Assyria. Copyright The Hanging Gardens of Babylonia. The legendary Hanging Gardens were created on the banks of the river Euphrates around 70th century. Ca the Shwasan of the Seven Wonders of the Old World. But it is surprising to note that the Babylonian cuneiform records which make mention of the city, its police and its walls are totally silent about the Hanging Gardens. Most of the scholars are of the view that King Nebuchadnezzar was the one who created the gardens. Nebuchadnezzar's wife Amytis was from Med. It is said that Nebuchadnezzar got the gardens built in order to console his wife who was missing the beautiful environment of hills, trees and flowers of her motherland. Some scholars opine that the gardens were created by Assyrian queen Samuramat. In reality, the gardens did not hang in the air. The trees and bushes were grown at different levels or terraced land of the ziggurats. When the branches hung at different levels and swayed, they gave the onlooker an impression of being a hanging garden. The Euphrates provided water for these gardens. Ziggurat. The history of Mesopotamia is a story of endless hatred and conflict. The Sumerians, the hilly tribe from the north, were the first to arrive here. They who used to worship their gods on top of the hills, after coming to the plains, built artificial hills and established their places of worship there. These were called ziggurat. They did not know how to build stairs and therefore surrounded them with sloping galleries. The Jews called these the Towers of Babel. The law codes of Hammurabi. The main source of law codes of Hammurabi are the rock dicts found in 1901 CE. Today this has been kept in the Louvre Museum of Paris. Hammurabi's when foreseed the logico funny for ane and etut for eter. Hammurabi's law codes are one among the most ancient of the codes available to us. They are probably written to protect the rights of all sections of Babylonian society, especially women and slaves. The Sumerians had entered Mesopotamia in 4000 BCE. Later they were overpowered by the Akkadians, one of the tribes of them. These are known as Semites. After 1,000 years, these Akkadians came to be rolled over by the Amorites, another Semitic tribe. The most famous king of the Amorites was Hammurabi. He got built a fabulous palace for himself in Babylonia. He framed the codes of justice and made Babylonia to be considered the best administered kingdom in the whole of the old world. The Hittites who came later, occupied the valley and destroyed all that they could not carry away. These Hittites were defeated by the Assyrians who were the followers of Asura, the desert god. The Assyrians occupied the whole of West Asia and Egypt till about 7th century BCE, and collected taxes from all the people. There another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans, re-established Babylonia in the 7th century BCE and developed it into a prominent capital of that time. Nebuchadnezzar was the greatest king among them. He encouraged the study of science. But the Chaldeans came under the attack of the Persians in the 6th century BCE. 200 years later, Alexander transformed this place of the Semitic peoples into a Greek province. After the rulers of the Romans and Turks who followed Alexander, this civilization declined and turned into a wilderness. The Chinese civilization, it is a special feature of all ancient civilizations that they were established on river plains. The Chinese civilization was no exception to this. But the river which led to the establishment of the Chinese civilization was known as China's Sorrow. This was the Huanghe River. After the floods, this river changed its course in an unpredictable manner and inundated houses and agricultural lands. It would render all the canals useless. This was the reason the people of that area referred to it as the symbol of sorrow. According to archaeological evidences, the first ruling family of the Chinese civilization was the Shang dynasty. It ruled in the period between the 18th century BCE and the 12th century BCE. Under the rule of this dynasty, the people had developed a wonderful culture. By the 14th century BCE, the Shang dynasty was overpowered by the neighboring Zhou dynasty. The Zhou dynasty continued the good traditions of the Shang culture and ruled till 250 BCE. In the Zhou dynasty, there was a section of officials below the kings. The king allotted portions of land to the officials. In return for that, the officials supported the king during battles. In the social stratification, the communities in the next level were the merchants and craftsmen. Apart from them, we can find a great majority of peasants as well. In the lowest strata of social hierarchy were the slaves. The prisoners of war were made slaves by the kings. The Great Wall of China. Second empire consisted of many small provinces. 7 big states were created, bringing these smaller provinces under them. Every state that was created thus constructed a wall along its boundary for protection. Emperor Qin Shi Huang cheered the red earth walls of northern China states connected. This enabled the northern walls to ward off the attacks of invaders from the north. The construction of the Great Wall began in the 17th century CE and continued till the 16th century. Worn out parts were repaired and strengthened. When the work was completed, it stretched to more than 5,000 kilometers. It is one of the 7 wonders of the world. The Shang kings spent quite an amount of time in conquests and battles. Hence the army was in prominence. The soldier enjoyed a dignified place in society. Soldiers wore bronze helmets and metal armors. The bronze daggers, axes, bows and iron-tipped arrows which they used have been found. The people of the Shang dynasty depended on agriculture. They had a well-organized system of irrigation. They used to grow plenty of rice. Porcelain. It is believed that porcelain originated in China. Semi-porcelain objects were in use from 1600 BCE by the time of the reign of the Han dynasty 200 BCE. Glazed porcelain had been developed. It had developed into an exotic art. The ancients used to bury dead along with porcelain pots, animals and the objects loved most during their lives. Copyright. The Chinese used to wear thin cotton dresses. They used silk too, and engaged in silkworm rearing. Silk minus manufacturing was a prominent industry. The Chinese used to make excellent pots, and had learned to make various objects from porcelain. It was a custom of the Chinese to worship their ancestors. They believed that a dead man became a spirit and that the spirit had special powers. The dead body was buried along with various wooden articles, pots, bronze vessels and other objects. The tombs of kings used to be quite large. The Chinese tradition of writing began with pictures and got transformed into an ideographic script. Writers used to write on silk and bamboo slips. Porcelain and the Great Wall are the exceptional contributions of this culture.